he did get into some gunfights on these reconnaissance missions, and he definitely did prove some merit. And he showed himself to be cool under pressure. And I'll say this again: in World War One, he was notably a very brave man. So he gets a promotion to major December 11th, 1915. When America declares war on Germany on April the 6th of 1917, MacArthur and Newton D. Baker secured an agreement from then President Wilson, one of the worst presidents the United States has ever had, to use the National Guard on the Western Front, leading to the creation of the 42nd Rainbow Division, which MacArthur, as its chief of staff, was ranked as a colonel. The 42nd Division saw some action in the Champagne-Marne offensive, where MacArthur was decorated with the Croix de Guerre by Major General Georges de Balazar, and the Silver Star Medal by Menrehel, and the Distinguished Service Cross. MacArthur was promoted to Brigadier General on June the 26th, and he would see some further action at the Battle of Saint-Mihiel and the Meuse-Argonne offensive. He was awarded a second Distinguished Service Cross, and by the end of the war, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal and about 7 Silver Stars. So lest it be said, MacArthur was not a coward, because people poked at him later in World War II for cowardice, and I think that's very unfair. And I will get into that when we do cover things that happen on Corregidor, because that's one thing that you can't really go after him for. He wasn't a coward. Now, after the Great War, MacArthur became the superintendent of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where he spent a lot of time reforming there. Instead of the traditional summer camp at Fort Clinton, MacArthur had the cadets trained to use modern weapons by regular Army sergeants at Fort Dix, having them march back to West Point with full packs on. He replaced the study of campaigns, during the Civil War to those of World War One, because obviously it's brand new material. They've probably been looking at the Civil War stuff for a long time by that point. And there was a lot of things, he brought some unique changes, but I mean, also it's kind of a product of its time. MacArthur married multimillionaire heiress Louise Cromwell Brooks in Palm Beach, Florida. This is a scandalous story, by the way. On February the 14th of 1922. And on October of that same year, they would sail for the Philippines with her 2 children, Walter and Louise, where MacArthur would assume command of the military district of Manila. In June of 1923, MacArthur assumed command of the 23rd Infantry Brigade of the Philippine Division. So you can see here that MacArthur has an extensive career going back to his father's experiences in the Philippines and in Southeast Asia, for that matter.
It's quite a connection.
Yeah, it's in his blood. He does have a connection, particularly to the Philippines, but he has a lot of knowledge of the Asia Pacific, which makes him unique for what happens later on. In June of 1923, MacArthur assumed command, like I said, of the 23rd Infantry Brigade of the Philippine Division. The next year, he helped quell the Philippine Scout Mutiny, and he received another promotion to become the youngest Major General in the U.S. Army at that time. 1927, MacArthur and Louise separated because
I think just wanted to say one thing. For peacetime armies, just getting even a promotion
it's crazy.
to like star ranks was crazy. I mean, if you even look at it, like if I just compare Sir Archibald Wavell in the British Army, very distinguished career, but he had to remain a colonel for most of the interwar period, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, started getting like the general rank in just a few years before World War II began.
Not to besmirch the United States military, but during the interwar period, Britain was more professional, and Britain maintained, like you said, I don't want to call it like a meritocracy, but you can tell with MacArthur, he's kind of being groomed a little bit, and his mom has a lot to play in it too, of course. And they're kind of promoting him up as like a figurehead, almost, I find, at this point. And it's not totally merit based. We'll say that much. But he then assumes command of the Philippine Department. By 1930, MacArthur was 50 years old and still the youngest and best known U.S. Major Generals at the time. He would leave the Philippines command to go back to San Francisco. And on November the 21st, 1930, he was sworn in as a chief of staff of the U.S. Army with the rank of full general, which again is impressive, not being during wartime. While in Washington, he was known to be quite a character, and here we're gonna shit on him a little bit. There are reports that he liked to go around wearing a Japanese kimono in his office, and he would cool himself with an oriental fan while smoking cigarettes from a jeweled cigarette holder. He also, I don't remember the exact year when this began, but he began hiring public relations staff to promote his image with the American public, trying to showcase, his beliefs or what he wants people to think his beliefs are. Because MacArthur definitely had political ambitions. And I think anyone who knows the story, what happens later after the Korean War and stuff, you know where this is going. He wanted to portray himself as a strongman that America needed. And he, like most at this time, wanted to present himself as being adamantly anti-communist. He believed that America's destiny was in the Asia Pacific, which everyone, I would say, in America at this point believed. There's a lot of strong interests in the Asia Pacific. And like most Americans in the military prior to World War II, he had a hostility to Britain and the British Empire, which goes without saying, for the Americans. One contemporary described MacArthur as the greatest actor to ever serve in the U.S. Army. While another wrote
That's
that
quite a comment.
He had a court rather than a staff, and that one comes from Eisenhower, by the way. I know that quote.
So future president and equal pair in military ranks comments, right?
Yeah,
Like,
isn't that
if we
interesting?
look, if I just say equal because of the fact that both did get promoted to five-star general from that angle I was
Yeah,
mentioning.
but Eisenhower did get the presidency where MacArthur did not, and I think that has a lot to do with the debacle in Korea. Here's something that really besmirched his career. MacArthur did a controversial act in 1932 during what was known as the bonus army situation, and this is where veterans of World War I were converging on Washington to demand early cash redemption of their service certificates. Excuse me. To just brutally summarize, they were promised, we'll call it bonuses, and the United States. It's not as if they weren't handing them out. They were just very slow to do so, and we were hitting the Great Depression, in
Oh,
1929
it's
there.
already in peak
Yeah, yeah,
season.
exactly. So of course, they wanted to take out some of this money to help them and their families, and Washington was reluctant. So MacArthur finds himself in a position where he has to deal with what looks like, I guess you could say, a threat to to Washington. Not really. I mean, a lot of these people, they had tents surrounding, the premise, and they were feeding each other, and it was I'm going to call it a peaceful protest, and that's a heated subject today, but back then, I could say most people would agree. So MacArthur, he decided he was going to do something rather bold. He was concerned that communists, I mean, this is his words, that communists were taking over the movement. And that, he went to Herbert Hoover at the time, who was president of the United States. And he's like, I want to surround the affected area and clear it out without delay. So MacArthur brought up some troops with tanks and actually
Yeah, I can
against
see that's how it's going.
Yeah, so against the advice of Major Dwight D. Eisenhower at the time, he brought this force up to try and disperse the group of peaceful protesters, I'll call it. And in a few hours, they cleared the bonus army's campgrounds using tear gas, which accidentally started some fires, killing a few people. And it was a public relations disaster. And guess what? There was another famous guy here who was leading those tanks, and he didn't want to do so, but it was Patton. So Patton got stuck in this too.
So I'm guessing this pattern and MacArthur never really had a harmonious relationship, or have you
Actually,
know
they
anything?
met each other once in France during World War One, and as far as I remember, Patton didn't have anything bad to say about him. Kind of liked him.
No, yeah. Though I guess we never know, right? Since they were in completely different theaters of operations, and
Yeah, I mean, they never
and
professionally really worked together. Yeah.
yeah, and not to mention when you have two giant egos clashing, that's
Oh
never
my
going to
god.
go
Yeah.
down well.
I mean, they would be hilarious together. Talk about clash of tyrants. But this bonus army situation was really unpopular with the American public. It was disastrous, and it actually led to it contributed. I won't say it led to contributed to Hoover losing out, and I think
And
it
the
contributed to
presidency
Hoover looking bad too. But
for the 32 presidential elections.
yeah, I think it contributed to that. Yeah, definitely. 1934, MacArthur was extorted by a journalist named Drew Pearson over having a mistress, Isabel Rosario Cooper, who he had been with in the Philippines. And I'll say allegedly, MacArthur settled out of court, paying him about $15,000 at the time. We'll talk about financial things with MacArthur. In 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt won the U.S. election, and of course, he brought in the New Deal, sweeping changes. I want to note to the audience who might not be aware, prominent Democrat, whereas MacArthur would be seen as a prominent front runner for the Republican Party, or coming soon to be. Maybe not at this point, but he's definitely looking. MacArthur and Roosevelt ran into some hot water many times. Roosevelt wanted to cut the Army's budget about 51%. MacArthur, started to attack him. He lectured Roosevelt apparently at the White House, saying things like, when we lose the next war, and there's like an American boy lying dead in the mud with a bayonet through his belly, or dying of other things, it's going to not be the name MacArthur that'll be blamed, but it'll be Roosevelt. So he
Damn.
said some rather big stuff. Yeah. And apparently Roosevelt yelled at him, "You must not talk to the president that way." And MacArthur offered to resign. And this is all alleged, by the way. I don't know if this is concrete information. Roosevelt refused to allow him to resign. And apparently MacArthur, he staggered out of the White House and he puked on the front steps. Again, this is all alleged information. I read this out of a biography done on MacArthur, and I will admit it seemed to be pretty biased against him. Seemed a little bit schmutty, to be honest. It's of course the
And
famous one, America
I'm pretty
Caesar.
sure like something like that would have been well documented, I guess.
Well, he is a
But
very well documented person because he got so many people to write about him, and they all lied about him.